The Mississippi River is the second longest river and chief river of the second largest drainage system on the North American continent, second only to the Hudson Bay drainage system. From its traditional source of Lake Itasca in northern Minnesota, it flows generally south for 2,320 miles to the Mississippi River Delta in the Gulf of Mexico. With its many tributaries, the Mississippi's watershed drains all or parts of 32 U.S. states and 2 Canadian provinces. Between the Rocky and Appalachian Mountains, the main stem is entirely within the United States. The total drainage basin is 1,151,000 square miles, of which only about 1% is in Canada. The Mississippi ranks as the 14th largest river by discharge in the world. The river either borders or passes through the states of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, Mississippi, and Louisiana. Native Americans have lived along the Mississippi River and its tributaries for thousands of years. Most were hunter-gatherers, but some, such as the mound builders, formed prolific agricultural and urban civilizations. The arrival of Europeans in the 16th century changed the native way of life as first explorers, then settlers, ventured into the basin in increasing numbers. The river served first as a barrier, forming borders for New Spain, New France, and the early United States, and then as a vital transportation artery and communications link. In the 19th century, during the height of the ideology of manifest destiny, the Mississippi and several western tributaries, most notably the Missouri, formed pathways for the western expansion of the United States, formed from thick layers of the river's silt deposits. The Mississippi embayment is one of the most fertile regions of the United States. Steamboats were widely used in the 19th and early 20th centuries to ship agricultural and industrial goods. During the American Civil War, the Mississippi's capture by Union forces marked a turning point towards victory. Due to the river's strategic importance to the Confederate war effort, because of the substantial growth of cities and the larger ships and barges that replaced steamboats. The first decades of the 20th century saw the construction of massive engineering works such as levees, locks and dams, often built in combination. A major focus of this work has been to prevent the lower Mississippi from shifting into the channel of the Atchafalaya River and bypassing New Orleans. Since the 20th century, the Mississippi River has also experienced major pollution and environmental problems, most notably elevated nutrient and chemical levels from agricultural runoff, the primary contributor to the Gulf of Mexico dead zone. The word Mississippi itself comes from Mississippi, the French rendering of the Anishinaabe name for the river, Mississippi. In the 18th century, the river was the primary western boundary of the young United States. And since the country's expansion westward, the Mississippi River has been widely considered a convenient, if approximate, dividing line between the eastern, southern, and midwestern United States, and the western United States. This is exemplified by the Gateway Arch in St. Louis and the phrase, Trans-Mississippi, as used in the name of the Trans-Mississippi Exposition. It is common to qualify a regionally superlative landmark in relation to it, such as the highest peak east of the Mississippi, or the oldest city west of the Mississippi. The FCC also uses it as the dividing line for broadcast call signs, which begin with W to the east and K to the west, mixing together in media markets along the river. The Mississippi River can be divided into 3 sections. The Upper Mississippi, the river from its headwaters to the confluence with the Missouri River. The Middle Mississippi, which is downriver from the Missouri to the Ohio River. And the Lower Mississippi, which flows from the Ohio to the Gulf of Mexico. The Upper Mississippi runs from its headwaters to its confluence with the Missouri River at St. Louis, Missouri. It is divided into 2 sections. The source of the Upper Mississippi branch is traditionally accepted as Lake Itasca, 1,475 feet. However, the lake is in turn fed by a number of smaller streams from its origin at Lake Itasca to St. Louis, Missouri. The waterway's flow is moderated by 43 dams. 14 of these dams are located above Minneapolis in the headwaters region and serve multiple purposes, including power generation and recreation. The remaining 29 dams, beginning in downtown Minneapolis, all contain locks and were constructed to improve commercial navigation of the upper river. Taken as a whole, these 43 dams significantly shape the geography and influence the ecology of the upper river. Beginning just below St. Paul, Minnesota, and continuing throughout the upper and lower river, the Mississippi is further controlled by thousands of wing dikes that moderate the river's effort.